Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Peter Williams, and I lead technology for AWS Financial Services Partners. I'm really excited to be here today talking about a really important topic in financial services, artificial intelligence, and how it's helping financial services organizations help their customers. I'm also very excited to be presenting with Frank Tarsillo, Managing Director at IHS Markit. IHS Markit has been really on the forefront of cloud innovation for the past 2 or 3 years, and is a cloud-first company serving financial services, and it's really exciting to see what they're doing. They've come a long way from 3 years ago, and today are really on the cutting edge, and you're going to see a lot of what Frank and his team have worked on at IHS Markit, specifically around how it's helping commodities traders today with the commodity tracker product. So just to talk about takeaways for just a second, we're going to talk about great technologies and terrific use cases, and go through a lot of what a lot of people are asking about in terms of how AI is being used. But what I hope today is for those of you who are new to machine learning or to AI, that you will take away today a way to get started, a way that you can, coming out of this session, know where to go to actually start using AI and getting familiar with some of the tools that can help you to really expedite the process of incorporating it into your applications and serving your customers. For those of you that have used machine learning, I hope we can help by demonstrating some great use cases and give you ideas for how you can use it to serve your customers better in other ways. And we're going to talk a lot about different areas of financial services and how they're using machine learning. So how is machine learning changing financial services? First, let's talk a little bit about AI and a couple of definitions. So what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is a system or service that performs a task usually requiring human intelligence. And within that, you have machine learning, you have deep learning. So what are these? Machine learning is the process of using algorithms to parse data, learn from it, and then use it to solve new problems. So rather than coding each step required to achieve a particular task, large quantities of data are parsed, example inputs with matching outputs. And from these patterns, from these examples, patterns are identified that can be used to solve new problems. So really exciting stuff. A great use case is spam email identification. So you can imagine, excuse me, I have a cold, billions of emails and perhaps millions and millions of email spam tags assigned by annoyed email recipients who got spam. And if you take all this information and look at the sender, the time the email was sent, and the content of the emails, you can identify patterns to identify, what spam emails are going to be coming in the future. And of course, today, I don't get a lot of spam, and it's because these processes have been so effective in identifying these patterns. So what about deep learning? Deep learning requires significantly more computational power and data in order to achieve a result. So AI has actually been around for 50 years. So why are so many companies looking at how they can use AI today? Well, the reality is it wasn't until the advent of technologies like big data and massive computational and data storage capabilities available in the cloud that AI became economical. So today, it's really changed the game in terms of how companies can easily use AI to do so many new exciting things. The challenge has really been around scale. In a traditional data center, you're always typically going to be running up against some type of a capacity limitation, whether it's a data storage limitation, a computational limitation. So the scale enabled by the cloud has really changed the game. The complexity and scale required to make predictions or to infer predictions, especially in real time at low latency, is significant. Imagine a credit card company and you're receiving credit requests to accept, to approve, or decline, millions of these every day. And you've got to be able to determine which of them are fraudulent in real time. So, this is affecting, the bottom line for these companies. If they get a request that they reject and it's not fraudulent, they're going to make their customer pretty unhappy and certainly risk that customer going to their competitor. If they accept a fraudulent transaction, of course, they've got a liability. So it's really important to make a good decision in real time. Now, imagine trying to do the same analysis last Friday, right? On Black Friday, you had a tremendous increase. I don't know if it was 100-fold or what the numbers would be in terms of the number of purchases being made at the height of the US holiday season. The ability to scale up and scale down and pay for only what you're using is really essential in making this economical. At AWS, we've been working with customers to solve these types of problems for over a decade. We have customers with petabytes and exabytes of data, and they're using tons of GPUs and CPUs to solve these types of problems. So really exciting to see the significant traction that's happening in the market. Let's take a look at some use cases. And Frank's going to delve into a really, really exciting set of use cases, I think. And he's got some surprises as well, I think.
Yeah, we'll surprise the audience at the end.
I'll even be surprised.
Well, I didn't show you yet.
I know. So let's take a look for a second at asset management. Portfolio optimization is an area where artificial intelligence has made a big difference. A lot of companies are investing in this area. The ability to react to a changing marketplace and still meet a customer's risk tolerance is a big area where AI is being used. One really exciting use case, we're working with a company, a very established company, that has taken equity analyst ratings on a historical basis. Many of you know that large equities typically have analysts, right? Many of them. Something like Amazon, I don't know how many analysts we have, it could be 5 or more. A small company typically may not. And what this company has done is looked at historical equity analyst ratings, looked at historical fundamental data about companies and other non-economic data, and established patterns so that going forward they can actually establish an equity analyst rating for any company. So it's pretty exciting. I love to see that kind of use case and taking patterns and really helping companies. In the banking space, we talked about credit card processing. Of course, lending fraud is another big area. In customer onboarding, there's a lot of work going on in, reducing the complexity and just applying for a loan or applying for a checking account at a bank. Typically, these processes of applying for a new account have taken 15 or 30 minutes. But using some of the AI capabilities, companies have reduced that to under a minute, which has really reduced the barrier to entry and enabled banks to onboard customers at a much higher rate. Of course, in digital banking, AI is essential for a lot of the suggestions that are made for customers that are relevant to their particular purchase history. In compliance, anti-money laundering, counterterrorism financing, these are areas that have used AI perhaps for the longest time in financial services. But using the scalability of the cloud, they've really been able to move the needle in terms of identifying fraud. And of course, in security, cyber attacks, data leak detection, virus detection, any case where you want to identify an anomaly, something that stands out from the usual pattern, or identify a pattern of a previous attack, is a great use case for using AI and machine learning. AWS has really become the center of gravity for artificial intelligence. Companies like Netflix, Pinterest, NASA, and a number within actually financial services that aren't necessarily willing to go public with it, have really been investing heavily in the AI space. So it's tremendously exciting to see that. I'm going to turn it over to Frank, who's going to talk a bit about what IHS Markit is doing to serve their commodities customers.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Frank Tarsillo. I head up architecture and platform for IHS Markit. I'm actually a managing director, but I'm really an engineer at heart. I'm actually writing code every day still, okay, and I enjoy it. Today we're going to talk about commodities. And I think we're going to start off with a simple definition, although it's not on the slide. I think everyone should understand what a commodity is and what the problem in the commodity industry is. And we'll drive, by the way, if you bear with me through the slides, because everyone is kind of dry, the slides, I have demos. Trust me, we have demos to show you, which is going to be cool, hopefully cool. So number one, what is a commodity? Commodity is something physical, like gold, metals, right, copper. These are coffee, cotton, things that are actually traded but physically stored somewhere. And believe it or not, they're stored in warehouses all over the world. As odd as that sounds, people actually taking clipboards and checking to see how much inventory is sitting in a stack of metal, and then reporting on it back to institutions, companies, about the quantity that they, from an inventory perspective, what they hold. And that's on a piece of paper, fax machines, yeah, email, still, okay, globally. Different geographic locations, different formats in terms of the data that's being produced, in terms of the reporting. You can imagine the reconciliation burden for major institutions all over the world. Because the front office traders, they just simply want to trade, right? And they use obviously commodities. It's not just to trade commodities, it's also to use the commodities as collateral. They might want to hedge something, they might want to, have enough to margin against. So it's very important to understand the complexity of commodities. It's not just, we just trade this thing and we're used to exchanges kind of managing the digital aspects of trading, but this is literally a 300-year-old problem where they're still continue to drive reconciliation and reporting through paper. So we're going to talk about Commodity Tracker today and how we can solve some of these issues, and you can see the issues that come from paper. We have, obviously, global warehouses that are completely different. We have an enormous amount of paper flow, and because of paper flow, that creates risk in the marketplace. So risk being, if you don't know what your position is, you're pretty much in trouble, right? Every day. So we want to eliminate the error-prone nature of commodities and really reconciliation and positioning. And what did IHS Markit do? Well, we created a product, partnered with a couple of our customers, and created a product called Commodity Tracker. And the whole vision here, so you guys get an understanding of what it is if we collect all of those paper documents on behalf of the customer, and we scan all those things in, or analyze them, the documents, digitize them in a structured way, and then provide a service out to our customers in terms of aggregation and permissioning. I think that is simple in terms of how we describe it, but it's hard. It's harder than you think. Again, going back to paper and how paper is kind of in different formats, again, different locales, and if I just go back to when I said there's a guy, literally in a warehouse with a clipboard in China, in Singapore, in Europe, everywhere, right? Literally marking stuff off and then getting a request to send what he put on paper through a fax machine to, a large institution. So again, if we digitize that in a way, we figure out how to digitize this stuff into record format, it provides a better means of automating and finding your position within a trading floor. So that's the goal of Commodity Tracker. How do we get there? I don't want to bore you with the journey. I'm sure this week you've heard a lot about people's journey along the path of cloud enablement and going into the cloud. IHS Markit, I think we stood up and said we want to be cloud first. That was about 2.5 years ago. Actually, it was funny. We had I worked on cloud prior to IHS Markit, but in IHS Markit, we started with $10,000 and a credit card. And we grew substantially. And how do you grow? Well, you take, cloud-first strategy. You've seen these things before, and these are just kind of points I like to make to people that I speak with about going cloud. Cloud native versus lift and shift, if you don't understand what that means, is basically, hello? Okay, just cut out there. It basically is if you're going lift and shift, you're taking what you own today and moving it to the cloud. You're literally putting it on a cart and shipping it across. That's not very efficient, right? Hello? There we go. I'm not going to move now. Yeah. I'm going to stay. That's not like me. But it's more expensive to do it that way, right? And you're not going to get the benefits of the cloud. So you really want to look at how you're moving into the cloud and maybe refactor your systems to make use of the SaaS and IaaS services. going to talk loud. Oh. Okay. So we want to make use of those services. It's an upfront investment, so it's very important to understand that you're going to be spending a little more money up front to kind of convert and move over, but the long tail is a benefit, right? So if you look at the 3-year plus out vision, you're going to see some cost savings if you go cloud-enabled first. Refreshing the estate. Yeah, we went through and said, it's not just going to be 1 or 2. Let's look at a holistic approach. Let's look at the entire estate, all of our data centers all over the world, the physical data centers, the co-locations, all the things that you probably deal with in this room. Everyone deals with their own set of problems in terms of how they operate. Financial transparency, this is a very important one. Difficulties here with the mic. Okay. Financial transparency is a very important aspect of cloud enablement. And really where it's important is in explaining it to the exec. So when you go to a business, are we okay? When we go to our business units, our product managers, we explain that we want to put stuff into the cloud. We lead with, you'll be able to see how much you're spending every day. And then you can figure out what your margin is for that business. Now, you kind of repeat that message up and up and up, all the way up to the exec, and they start to appreciate that when they see it, right? So you have to actually have 1 or 2 products that you're going to demonstrate that view from. DevOps world, we're all in that DevOps world. Yep, you're going to convert. If you're going with the kind of traditional, I call it the matrix model, where you're throwing tickets in a queue and you expect the database team to do database work and you expect the network team to do network work. Good luck. Good luck. Okay. Go with DevOps model. It's probably a better approach. Figure out how those teams become closer to the product.
Is that my fault?
I'm going to switch with you soon.
Okay.
Global scale. So look at a global entire state again, and then you get the cost savings in the end. And you can see this kind of hybrid model played out with many companies. Architecture approach. So how do we go and build commodity track? Well, it's process. I think somebody's coming to help me with my mic. Hold on. See?
This has been tough for the technology today. Fortunately, we have a DR plan. We're going to fail over to our AZ right now. Is that working?
Yeah, he's got to go in.
Okay.
I don't want to yell. Although I can yell. Hello? Perfect. Okay. Yay. Okay, so microservices, and again, you're going to see this played out in a lot of companies, and you can pick your tools, right? But you have to create a good CI/CD process. When we talk about Commodity Tracker, the product, it's a 2-week release cycle. Every 2 weeks, we release Commodity Tracker, right? And we do it, push button style through a CI/CD process with the tools. These are some of the tools that we use. It's all microservices, Docker, Kubernetes. Well, it's OpenShift, which is Kubernetes underneath OpenShift, if you're familiar with Kubernetes. It's all cloud-enabled, right? And the response from the customer is, we love it, okay? We love it. We see the changes every 2 weeks, and that makes us happy. And we understand when you break something, you're going to be able to fix it very quickly, okay? Because they've seen it happen. They've seen us actually make mistakes, small mistakes. Yeah, we make mistakes sometimes. And then we release a product, and then again, 2 weeks later, it's fixed and even better, right? So again, architectural approach here. We're not going to talk about OCR because we're going to talk about that in the demos and as I describe the product to you. API-driven, obviously looking at SSO, preferences, notification services, all those nice microservices that you want to see in a modern application. And obviously leveraging Amazon's multi-AZ capabilities is a global system. Machine learning. Okay, so let's talk about what it is, right? So as I mentioned, Commodity Tracker is a product that simply scans documents in. No, it's not that simple, okay? So what we're doing is we're actually taking these documents, this paper, again, 300-year-old problem. We're taking these paper documents that the customers are sending to us, that they receive, and we're running them through a machine-enabled document classification system. Now, let me be very clear on this. It is the first step in the process, the document classification. We do a preliminary OCR scan of the document. And what documents are we talking about? This is the inventory receipts. They call them bills of lading is the best way to describe, technical way of describing it, but think of it as an inventory receipt. We take this document in, it might not be an inventory receipt, it might be in other documents, and we just simply want to classify what it is, right? And we'll explain why in a second. What it is. Is it a bill of lading? Is it a description of the commodity? Is it an erroneous document being sent to us? So identifying what it is makes the downstream processing more effective. So in this case, we're having problems again. Uh-oh. In this case, let me do this. There we go. In this case, we're going to take a document and we're going to run it through a classification predictor, right? And we have to train that predictor, and we're going to get into how we do that. But you have to create a model, okay, of all the different documents that you can possibly scan. Wow, that's crazy, right? It's almost impossible. But we spent a lot of time working with our customers and pulling in those documents and actually training our model up through the normal, we'll go through the tools, but the tools that support machine learning capabilities. And we create a model out of that that gets placed into our predictor so that when we receive the document, the model is executed against the document that is scanned in initially. Okay, it is digitized at that level, just a basic level. And then it's classified. It's a bill of lading. It's a whatever it is. It's metadata. It's simple metadata. And why do we do that? Well, we want to actually feed downstream another OCR scanner that is going to take that metadata and realize that, oh, it's a bill of lading, because upstream's told us it's a bill of lading. I'm going to go take a different model specifically for bill of lading or an invoice receipt, an inventory receipt, and I'm going to apply that model against that OCR scan, the second scan. So we have two different scanning here. We have the first one that just classifies the documents, and the second one that's actually digitizing the records within the document based on the template that is determined from the classification predictor. Well, you might say, well, hold on. What if something goes wrong? What if the accuracy is really poor accuracy? I don't know, a certain percentage, we get 50% accuracy. That's pretty bad, actually. Well, it gets shoved off. Right now, it's getting shoved off to a internal workflow where someone is actually triaging that issue, looking through the type of document, maybe it's just wrong, right? And then putting it back into the training system. We're currently working on automating that. As you can imagine, that's very difficult. You're just going to take any garbage document and try to figure out what the exceptions are as a process in its own right? It's machine learning in its own right. So initially, you start off with, let's just do something very basic and take the exceptions that occur based on a certain percentage. Again, a predictability lower than, say, 80%, and you say, okay, I'm going to throw that into my training workflow, and I'm going to have someone take a look at it and then put it back into my modeling, okay, which is ultimately going to create a new model that will scan other documents that come forward. And off the back of that, obviously, we store it in your traditional database and have APIs that host it. Now, all of that, really, when you talk about tooling here, you're talking about things like, and if you're not familiar with these tools, Keras and TensorFlow. Keras, if you're not familiar with Keras, it's kind of this abstraction layer. It's an easy way to work with TensorFlow if you really want to hand it off to some of the business guys. It's actually better to actually use Keras. We leverage the Amazon AMI. This is the AML AMI. Why? Because I really don't want to waste my time building an image with the standard set of tools. Hey, Amazon provides those tools as part of their stack, which we're going to talk about in a bit. Definitely want to leverage that because I don't want to waste my team's time, in building those capabilities. The GPU side of this, to really effectively use machine learning and create those models and execute those models, you need to start using GPUs, right? So CPUs are just not going to cut it, classic CPUs. So you need to start looking at GPUs, and Amazon provides the P2 and now P3 instances, really high-end GPU processing, which you can apply, again, the tools to. Last thing here is data lake. If you raise your hand, how many people have a data lake? I'm sure people have data lakes all over the place. It's the biggest buzzword now. But we have a serious issue in IHS Markit because we just joined, two companies just joined together, IHS and Markit. They were two companies a year ago. And now we're bringing all of our data assets together. So it's a big problem, and it's a good excuse. Hey, let's create a data lake. Why not, right? So, but it's real, right? And what we're doing here with the document classification engine is actually feeding the documents into the data lake that we maintain, is where all our documents sit. We're feeding the results of the prediction back into the data lake for reuse, and we're feeding the models, so if anybody wanted to use the models, they can. So when we talk about, the data catalogs in a data lake, you can actually start using the models that we have as part of that catalog, which is kind of interesting. Look at it. Okay, so talking about product maintenance, I kind of described some of this already. So it's kind of on two ends here. If you're looking from the top down, that's kind of the production processes. We've got really a predictor, and we're dealing with the corrections off that predictor. And then we got the data lake, which is really S3, where we're storing all the trained models, documents, and results. And there's a catalog, which I haven't drawn in here, which is really managing what's sitting in the lake, what's sitting on S3. It's very classic. If you do go to the Amazon websites and you look at best practices for building a data lake, they'll describe to you, basically S3 and a whole bunch of other great tools to use. And it really makes sense. So if you really look through it, it really makes sense to use some of those tools and those approaches from a design perspective. And then the job scheduler and kind of processing, this is, again, training that model, creating a new model to classify those documents. Now, I'm rushing through this so we can get to a demo a bit. So I'm going to actually show, what we're going to show, by the way, is the demo on the document classification. We're actually going to take a bill of lading, and we're going to go into the document classification subsystems that we created within IHS Markit, and we're going to predict to see if this document that we're processing is a bill of lading, which is creating, again, that classification that's going to be used downstream. And then we have a few other surprises. But let me just finish off here and say what Commodity Tracker's benefits are. Because we automated that entire process going through, and we're aggregating the data, the inventory data, you're going to see 80% improvement in automation in terms of human involvement. You're not going to need, I say humans anymore, but you don't need as many back office commodity people to kind of manage the reconciliation of data and, again, create those positions for the front office. You're going to see, more importantly, I think, the timeliness, as I mentioned, it's the front office really wants to know their position. They really want to know, using it as collateral, and having someone walk it over or email it to them is not an option, right? Not to say they were doing that, but they were, again, looking at the error-prone nature of moving from paper into digital form is complicated. And then increased efficiency overall. So, I think these numbers can go up higher as we train the model and make it better, but it's solving a very specific industry problem that has teeth. And I think what's really interesting is that when we talk about machine learning and AI in financial services, we're always thinking about Monte Carlo, and we're thinking about all these great analytic engines that are trying to solve some serious things. But there's simple things with a lot of cost right now happening in the market that we can actually fix, and this is one of them. So that's Commodity Tracker, and I think I want to jump into a quick demo.
And one thing just to add, just to take a step back for a second, one thing that, Frank, you shared with me, I thought was pretty interesting, is that for the institutions that are using this, and these are large institutions that have, you can imagine how many warehouses around the globe of gold and aluminum and you name it, and the amount of bills of lading like you see here coming in a gazillion different formats, ultimately that process from a trader's perspective and from a risk management perspective meant that there were perhaps days between the time that the company received an update from the warehouse and the time the trader knew that they actually had that in inventory. It's one thing to have purchased something, it's another thing to actually have received it. Until you receive it, and I'm not a commodities expert at all, you basically can't use it to finance your next trade. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. So this stuff is shipped all over the world. So actually one of the products that IHS Markit has is maritime products, maritime information. So we actually monitor all the shipping lanes and what's on the ships, right? So what we're looking actually in the future is, not only what we have in terms of inventory monitoring and management within the warehouses, but also tracking it from the warehouse on a ship to another warehouse, right? And that's important because someone will know when the inventory is actually relocated, right? Again, adjusting their position. So I'm going to go over, really, this is a bill of lading. Right on top, it says bill of lading. But there's a lot of data in here, and we're going to run through a classification of this document. Again, so you understand what's happening, I'm going to bring up a very quick
And Frank, could you, just for a second, can you show that bill of lading for a sec, just to show what the
sure.
quantity is, just so people get a sense for kind of what does this mean? Sorry, I hope I didn't mess things up. Just go down for a sec. So what is this? This is 18, I don't know what.
Yeah, so this is, I'm going to zoom in over here. It's aluminum T-bars.
There you go.
Percentage max, has the weight. The weight's the most important part. They go by, okay? So this is kind of rough looking. And what our system does is we'll go in and actually scan it and digitize these as records, these actual entries as records. So first is understanding that it's a bill of lading. What is it? Again, what are we receiving? And then figuring out how to digitize it. Now, I've been part of the financial services for over 20 years. And I've seen a lot of products on the market, especially in the financial marketplace, when we talk about real-time data, scraping screens and doing a lot of those type of things. But just to give you an idea, the slight difference here is that this is kind of completely all over the place, right? The data is literally not predictable, right, where it's going to be placed. That's the key difference. When you deal with financial screen scraping, as I like to call it, it's very it has columns and rows, and you can kind of find it in specific areas, much easier to manage. In this case, it's literally, again, it could be handwritten. It can literally be handwritten, okay? So that's a bill of lading, and I'm going to show you that up here, if we look at this presentation, this slide. This is the document classification subsystem, okay? If everyone knows a subsystem, it's not one application. We run a microservices architecture. So you have a lot of containers, a lot of stuff happening underneath the hood. But logically, you're going to enter into, hopefully you can see my pointer, we're going to enter into the document workflow API endpoint service. That's what I'm going to call out. It's going to be very boring. Look, it's very boring, but I'm going to show you what's happening underneath the hood. It's going to get uploaded. It's going to be scanned through Lambda. We use Lambda functions to virus scan the document, because, hey, there could be something there that's bad. And obviously, the OCR service that does that initial scan, it gets put into the document store, part of our data lake, and then it continues on its journey back into the prediction engine. And there's a few other features there, which, again, you can look at. But as simple as that, it gets put into this process. And off the back of this, again, this is the initial stage. This is not the final stage in terms of digitizing the actual detail of the document. This is just simply classifying the document, okay? And it will look like something like this. We're going to upload a document. There's some general metadata that we add to that document. We're going to get some OCR off of it, which is just whatever you can find on this thing, right? So we can actually start to figure out whether the words that are presented, that are registering under the OCR scanner are related to a bill of lading or another type of document. And then the prediction results, in this case, was a certificate of analysis. Certificate analysis, by the way, is classifying like the quality of gold. Is it 18 karat? Is it 21 karat? Is it 14 karat? So that's the different document, right, in classification. But we're going to actually focus on a bill of lading process. And this is a little bit more, but I don't think we're going to spend time on this right now. So we're going to get right to the demonstration. And if Lambda is all nicely cached, it'll go very quickly. So we're going to go with our Postman. And this is very simple, just to make it a little larger for everyone. You're going to see we're going to call out our document services. This is in our, obviously, dev environment, so we're not doing anything in production. Don't worry, we're not crazy. We have a model here. We're using a CMTK for commodity tracker, V17 model, right? So this is a trained model that we were applying to classify this document. And we're going to, again, it's a little anticlimactic, but I'm going to pull in that document that I'm showing you. So that document I was presenting earlier, we're going to select that document. We see the results here already, but I'm going to run it again. Now, if it's hopefully not too slow. Watching paint dry. No, so what's happening here, and this is partly because of Lambda, because, again, it's our dev environments, and we haven't cached it up yet, and I have no one behind me doing the cache. What's happening is going through all those processes. And as long as the technology is working and the demo guards are happy, here we go, okay? And you'll see the results. What was happening there is, again, all those sub-processes, Lambda being called, it wasn't cached. The reason why it was taking so long, it wasn't cached, is doing all those checks, the scanning, the checking, all the way to the prediction modeler, and then presto, you have a classification or a prediction. And the prediction here, and we're just going to zoom in on it, is there a confidence score of 82%. 82% that this document that we just scanned is a BOL, bill of lading, right? So that's our code for bill of lading. And we take this metadata and some more metadata. I'm just showing you the simple view. and send it downstream. Again, something simple, but very effective, right? Because now that downstream OCR system is going to receive this information and go, okay, I'm going to go grab the model that relates to bill of lading. That's a different model, right? It's not going to do a classification of asset. It's going to go get the bill of lading model. And it's going to run against that particular model, which gives you a better result in the end. Because we could have created one big model, right, downstream, but that's really nasty. So start to kind of separate how you want to evaluate data, kind of create a fan out of how you're processing your information. Okay, so that was a little bit anticlimactic, but what's really happening? Where's the product, Frank? Does someone see the product? What does the end user see? So if everything's working here, we're going to find out in a second. This is the commodity tracker product. I'm not trying to pitch the product, I'm just trying to show you the results because I'm a technologist at heart. So what you're going to see here is basically all those records scanned in, and this is not related to document I scan, so this is some data we had in our QA environments. But you're going to see the location, the region, and the type of commodity. Hopefully you can see that to the right, okay? And then it gets into the shape of the commodity, what it is. Okay, let me go back here. Zoom out, okay. And more importantly, if I go down over here, it's going to start saying how much you actually own in weight and pieces. And weight, again, is the most important part. It's the aggregation. It's not just the one receipt that we're receiving and that we're trying to aggregate. We have to actually aggregate all these paper documents, classify them, digitize the records, put it through, again, exception workflow process just in case we mess up, and then ultimately come with an end result of what your position is. Now, let's do something really cool. You say, Frank, okay, that's still a bit boring. Oh, I'm just saying everything's boring today. Let's see if it's, oh, if I click on the right thing. Okay, so say I want to go and look at, and this is kind of nifty. So I'm going to go, let's go into Europe. Actually, yeah, let's go into Europe. I'm going to click on, zoom out a little bit, European region. And I want to see what's in London. And what's really great about this, if I can do it right without breaking anything, you see there's aluminum, which is this aluminum is how they the actual material, and the weight in a particular warehouse in London. And we can go over to Germany, and we can see what we have in Germany, and there's very minimal pieces in there. And then we can go over, again, to all the different regions. Now, this is kind of cool. Again, so what we've done is we've scanned these documents in. We're creating a service off the back of it so that the back office and the front office know exactly not how much they own, right, but where it is, where physically sitting, right, which is kind of interesting. Again, that's also coming off the bill, the invoices that we're, excuse me, the inventory receipts that we're receiving. Okay, so is that it? Well, I have one more surprise, and hopefully it's working. Let's see. Somebody in the back is going to tell me if it's working. I'm just going to kill some of this. This is kind of gnarly. Does anyone know Symphony at all? Maybe you do. Symphony is a collaboration network in the financial services, a very new network that's being assembled by all the institutions. Just instant messaging capability between counterparties. I am part of the Symphony Open Source Foundation outside of the LLC. It's not the company, but outside, so I do a lot of open source work. And what I decided on the way over, because I thought the presentation could be a little dry, and I'm going to go show you my slide here, is literally on the plane, start to create a bot. Why would I do that? Everyone know what a bot is? I'm sure everyone knows what a bot is. Now, if you don't, well, come see me afterwards, and I'll be happy to describe what a bot is. But what I decided to do very quickly, because I'm a big sponsor of Symphony and collaboration services in the financial services space, and why it's important, by the way, just so everyone understands, is all these traders are actually working over instant messaging, okay? When they're doing a voice trade, they're actually not doing a voice trade. They're actually talking over an instant messaging platform, whether it's the Bloombergs of the world, or Reuters Messenger, or Symphony. Pick one, right? Or Skype. Pick one that they're talking to each other. So it's very important to see if we can actually bring the context of our product, which is commodity tracker, in terms of the communication flow between counterparties and the inventory related to commodities into that conversation. So on my way over, on the plane, that's me, I said, okay, you know what? I don't know if I like these events so much. I'm going to sit there and write code, right? So I decided to write a bot And then I said, okay, how can I tie this into the presentation? Well, let's look at the great Amazon services that we have. Lex, right? So if you guys are not familiar with Lex, Lex is a bot framework, and it's not crazy about the bot framework per se, but it has something very, very important. It has natural language processing. And if anyone's created a bot in the room, how many people have created a bot in the room? Raise your hand if you've created a bot. Good. Okay, how many if-then-else statements do you do in a bot? Okay, plenty, right? What are you saying, right? If this equals this, then do something, right? From a language perspective. So what Lex does is it figures out the language for you in the prompts. It does all of that for you. So I don't have to do any of that, right? So it all sits up in Lex. And I just simply tie in my instant messaging platform to that bot communication. And off the back of that, I can tie it into some lambdas that can go off into Commodity Tracker and pull some information out. Well, why would I do this? Again, in the commodities world or any trading space, you'll find that counterparties are, again, communicating over these instant messaging platforms. They're doing all types of trading. So this demo, hopefully it works. Let's see, because again, on the plane, over, and this morning, we're going to show you, this is instant messaging 101. You see I have a commodity tracker bot.
So Frank,
Yeah.
just for context,
Please.
so a trader may be in here saying, talking to their broker, saying like, I've got 100 pounds of gold or what have you, and I'm looking to sell it, and the broker says, great, I'll take it, all right, and now he's like, the broker says, you got more, I actually am looking to buy more, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if I have to check.
Sorry?
The check now. So instead of going to the commodity tracker application, I don't have to do that. I can actually interact with a bot. Now this is very crude, granted, but just think about where we're going here, right? So I can simply say, let's see, check, I want to check my inventory. Let's see if it's happy today. See? The demo gods. Okay, I'm gonna just switch over and just do something really quick. Bear with me. So we're not seeing anything. So yeah, 1 minute. The demo gods have killed us.
So I'll talk while
Yeah,
you're doing
talk while,
that.
yeah.
So distract you over here. The ability to trade via chat is just critical for any trading industry. And so these are traders that are just in Symphony all day long. That's all they do. So the ability to hook that into other capabilities to track your inventory can be a significant advantage. And so in this plane ride, using services that do a lot of the heavy lifting for him, Frank's, hopefully this demo will work. What he's done is been able to integrate this chat environment with Commodity Tracker. Using Lex in Lambda.
There we go. Sorry about that. The connection broke behind the scenes. And I was truthfully saying I built this literally during the event. That's why I was running on my laptop, to be clear. So as you can see here, I said I want to check my inventory. And this is LexBot. Actually, so Symphony is an instant messaging platform, but it's actually talking in the background to Lex, which has another bot called the Commodity Tracker bot. And all these requests are going up to Lex. Again, natural language processing coming back going, wait, okay, you want check inventory. And we're going to change the words around afterwards, but this is saying what region. So let's look at EMEA, okay, as a region. What type of commodity? Here's the prompts coming through, right? This is coming from Lex. I didn't have to do this, right? It's all coming from Lex. What type of commodity? Let's do cobalt. Now, if the caching is all right, this might take a little time, but it's going back, and actually, because again, the Lambda functions are to process. It's going to go back into Commodity Tracker. It's actually going to go back into a Lambda function. It's going to initialize, and this is because it wasn't warmed. So, yep, just came back now. So, yay, it came back, right? So, what you see here is that you have a certain amount of cobalt in EMEA. So let's go check that, actually, if that's right. So we go back here. Let's go back to my inventory. Let's search EMEA. And yep, that's about right. If you could see that number down there. Okay. So we're using this, and we say, okay, let me just do one more thing, and now it's warm, so it'll be much faster now, I promise. So I want to just check check my inventory. Or I can say, yeah, check my inventory. Again, you should say, well, Frank, this is, that's pretty basic. It should actually do that for you. Let's try APAC, Asia, what commodity? Let's do lead. It should be faster. Here we go, so F61.12, and that is there in APAC, right? So what if I do something weird? Hello. No, I don't understand what that means. What's hello, right? Again, I didn't do that. I didn't have to write any code. That was all Lex, okay? I let Lex figure out what people are trying to get to, and then I'm focusing on my functional development, right? And why is this important? Why is this related to machine learning? Behind Lex is a huge Amazon, infrastructure, Alexa, everyone knows Alexa and whatnot, supporting the natural language processing. And again, these little things are very meaningful when you're in the financial services space, because if I have a trader here now working with the trader and another conversation, I can literally just switch over to my bot and say, hey, or I can make the bot part of the conversation and say, hey, you know what? We're talking about some inventory here, all right, about gold or again, aluminum or whatnot. And the bot figures it out for you, goes back behind the scenes, runs through the stack, and pulls back the information. So that was my surprise of the day. I don't know if that was anticlimactic, but that's really what it was. And hopefully you enjoyed the demo. We're going to switch back now to the main presentation, if I can get that right. We had some, as you can tell, we've been having some really big technical difficulties today, so apologies. There we go. There we go. Okay.
Thanks, Frank. So, I mean, to me, what was so powerful about that was the ability to, in a matter of, let's say you spent total of 4 hours or so, I don't know.
Yeah, between the drinking and the walking around.
And he was intoxicated the whole time, so that's really a challenge.
So, honestly, that program, I mean, there's a lot of parts to that program. So that actually was there are 4 applications that were developed for that program, and that took about probably, if I really, all the distractions, right? Remove the distractions, probably about 5 hours. 5 hours development, right? So, and you might say that's really simple, Frank. That's not a lot, but actually, I can quickly expand on that. If you give me another few hours, it'd be quite interesting demo, right? But that's what's really important about the next slide. I think we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and so the key is, and it's worth emphasizing that what these services enable you to do is to focus on how you can differentiate your capabilities, your company's offerings to serve your customers, right? It's not about building natural language processing, or, I mean, and you may use AI. In this case, Frank didn't have to build any AI, Lex took care of it. But building capabilities that are specific to what your customers need as easily and seamlessly as possible without having to do the heavy lifting. This is a fantastic example, I think, of just that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, IHS Markit, historically, we had, as a good example, we have a parsing application where we parse a lot of the email runs in the morning, and we actually wrote a quote-unquote natural language processing system years, right? We have somebody in the audience who kind of deals with that every day, but years of development. And with the tooling now, I honestly would say it probably take about, a few months, really, to do the same work that we did over probably 2 or 3 years of development, active development. So, I mean, this is the next slide. I would love to see the next. I want to see the next slide.
Yeah,
okay,
let's look at this. So tell me what this means to you, Frank, from your perspective. Why is this meaningful?
Yeah, so I mean, the industry is tough. I think everyone deals with, I think I'm better standing here. The industry is dealing with really transition, right? We're transitioning from what I like to call black box development, and this is a big word, big term, to more full stack development, and that's another set of words. What it really means is that it's very difficult to find people who are going to understand networking, storage, machine learning, all of it, right? Unless you're like this old school guy like me I've been doing this for 20-something years, and I used to run data centers and do all this stuff, right? And you kind of pick up all the pieces, jack of all trades, master of none. You don't find them. It's very hard. So what you do have is very traditional development needing to kind of progress up the stack, which cloud provides. And really what's important about this slide is the services side, right? So I think if you're kind of that traditional development side, you're really going to focus on services, which is, I think, the best place to start. And that's why it's great how Amazon kind of classified this, well, their stack and how they're presenting it. Because I would tell all my traditional developers, focus on services. Don't look at the frameworks just yet. Get through the services, because then you're productive and kind of feel it out, right? And Amazon's building those services, which, again, traditionally we would have to build internally. Again, I put my workforce to work and put them on those services and make them super productive. At the same time, we can focus on frameworks, and that's training and education, because that's the other side of this, right? Platforms are almost like given. We know what Amazon provides from a platform and scale perspective. But the frameworks underneath that is something you would educate your employees with, your staff, the developers who really want to know how the inner mechanics work, right? And I think that's what's also important. They're not hiding it from us, right? So Amazon's going, okay, look, I have all these services, but if you want to go deeper, you can, right? Which makes my life easier, because if something breaks or I need to tweak, I'm going down to the framework side, but I'm keeping 80% of my development team in the services sector, right? They're sitting up there and leveraging those great services. So that's what it means to me,
yeah.
And that's what I think is important for us as a industry, for the financial services industry. As we grow, you have to be productive. And if you're going to go off and build, these massive, solutions, these analytic systems, machine learning systems, and try to do it all yourself, you'll probably fail, or it's going to cost you a tremendous amount of money doing it. So start off with kind of well-known design patterns, SaaS services that, again, you're comfortable with. You're not saying always go down a service route, but make sure you look at it before you kind of go straight to the frameworks directly. And the last thing I would just say is that the frameworks themselves are nicely packaged. So you don't have to go crazy trying to build all of it and creating kind of a supported image with everything that's going to work nicely together. Amazon's already done that for you.
So you're right. The other thing I would say here is, just as the cloud has democratized compute and storage, AWS we've gone out of our way to democratize artificial intelligence. And this stack, I think, really represents that. For those of you that are less familiar with Poly, for example, it takes text to speech using, again, AI. Amazon recognition, parsing images, identifying that's a building, that's a dog, even parsing text within the image. That's the kind of service that's built all on top of machine learning. And then again, below that, so you see in Frank's case, they've used, IHS Markit has used the service Lex in one case. In another case, they actually use the frameworks underlying it. I think you're running TensorFlow and
TensorFlow and
Keras,
yeah.
Right? So you're using Amazon AMI, some of our AMIs, to actually deploy and handle the configuration for you.
Yep.
But between there, you have platforms like Amazon Machine Learning, which I'm going to touch on. We don't have a lot of time, but I'll touch on it briefly. Amazon EMR, which runs Spark clusters or Hadoop clusters for you. Kinesis for message streaming. AWS Batch for batch processes. ECS for container management. And then below that, all the usual suspects for artificial intelligence frameworks, all available through AWS deep learning AMIs. Including MXNet, TensorFlow, et cetera. And underlying all of this are infrastructure, right? GPUs, we talked about, they're using the P2s currently. P3s just came out. A lot of our customers are very excited about the new NVIDIA Tesla V100s that are just really, really fast. CPUs, and then other services like mobile and IoT. So this is a stack that can allow you to take the service level that you need in order to achieve your task. And hopefully, ultimately, this goes to the agility point, right? The agility of being able to put something together very quickly without having to rebuild everything yourself, that's really the key.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I asked everyone in the audience if they are actually building with some of these frameworks, I'm sure a good percentage of you are. And that's good, you should. But again, I just make mention of the fact that you should think about the tooling and kind of reduce the effort around tooling to focus on what you're building, which is the models and obviously the prediction stuff, the general machine learning capabilities. So again, try to keep your head into the functional game, and then again, allow others to build the tooling for you.
So Frank, as an example, before you were using the AMIs to run TensorFlow, I believe there was a lot of work that had been done by someone on your team. I think it was maybe a month or so to do the configuration installation.
So we had like an internal AI boot camp team. They ran off and started kind of playing and creating. That's good. It was very good. Yeah. It was very productive. But they good engineers, actually business. They all got together and actually conducted this boot camp. And someone had to engineer the solution for the boot camp. And this is before we touched the AML AMI. We went off and put on TensorFlow, put all the different tools on. Broke many times, the right Python versions, all the things you have to do. A month later, I said, why aren't we using the AML AMI? And like, oh, wow, boom, pulled it down. Everything was done and certified across, which was actually a great benefit to us.
Right, and when you want to move to the next version of something, it's just using the next AMI, right? So it's fully in your control. There's no additional configuration, which can take weeks.
Yeah, we point all our developers, and again, anyone that's interested in building AI within the product sets. I'm sure everyone has large companies. We might have small companies, but there's different verticals in the companies. So from an architectural perspective, we put some blueprints of standards down for the individual product teams, and one of them is, obviously, don't go off and build it on your own. Go and use so again, the tooling that's there for you, again, because it's been certified.
So we don't have a lot of time. I was going to touch on Amazon machine learning, but I've got a link I'll show you that's a great starting point. For those of you who have not worked with machine learning yet, I would encourage you, and I'll show you in a separate slide here, there's a link where you can go and actually run through a 30-minute tutorial that's hands-on, and you'll get hands-on experience with machine learning through our Amazon machine learning service, which does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And that can be something that you use and integrate fully into your application that makes your process a lot easier. It's got a lot of built-in capabilities to really streamline the process. I'm going to skip some of these slides and kind of head straight to the key takeaways. So again, if you've used machine learning before, what I hope you take away today is a lot of great use cases and examples of what financial services is using machine learning for today, how it's helping customers within the industry. And if you're new to machine learning, this link here, if you search on Amazon's AML site, there's a getting started area. Go to the tutorial there. It's a 30-minute tutorial. It'll guide you through getting your hands dirty with data, actually pulling the data in from S3. It'll suggest data transformations for you, which you can use as is, or you can tweak them interactively through the console. And then it'll give you a data quality score right there. And so it'll give you a really good flavor for how these capabilities can be easily incorporated into your business logic within your applications. So just one.
I mean, I think that's just one. We're almost out of time, but play. Go off and play, but really do the fundamentals first. So use the AMI. I think the message I want to take away is go grab the AML AMI. There's a bunch of tutorials online, not just from Amazon. Start with basic concepts and then grow your knowledge around how machine learning works and then how it can be applied to AI. So please, don't do it yourself. Go off and use some of the tools that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Frank, for being here with us.